I'm starting?
I don't know.
Who's starting? I remember.
Pete's starting.
Yeah.
Okay, and you'll be, people will
Okay.
face you and then.
You want to sit next to him?
Hello, everyone.
Sure.
Hopefully you can see us all and hear us well.
The downside is it's based over 80 miles north in Aberdeen, meaning the family are currently separated during the week.
The big thing is
So please mute your mics.
Kirsten the kids to drive
Help
up
us
to
out a
Aberdeen.
lot.
I managed
Just
to
a little
hold it
intro.
together, unfortunately. Kirsten and the kids did as well, so it didn't end up this sobbing family in the street.
That's
There
really
you
important
go.
to get us together.
Thanks.
So, to keep the family as one, Kirsten and the children are following Scott to Aberdeen and leaving behind. Which is my grandparents' old house. They lived here for over 30
excellent.
years.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming and for watching us live on Facebook and YouTube and around the world, wherever you are, in whichever time zone you are at the moment. First of all, welcome to our space. We are streaming from the San Francisco Arts Education Project, our gallery space here at Minnesota Street Project in San Francisco. And I'm super excited for this launch. It's been quite a while in the works. Just to say a couple of words about our organization here, the Arts Education Project. We're a 55-year plus nonprofit organization in San Francisco, and we primarily work by placing working artists in the school district to teach art. And then after school programs, we have a summer camp, we have a theater program, the SF Arts Ed Players. And now we have a beautiful gallery space in which we have exhibitions and public programs, and including this launch today. And I'm super thrilled to welcome Ian Winters here. And this is not the first time that we've worked with Ian. I guess the most recent collaboration was Ian's Tides project, which was a sort of immersive, beautiful installation in our space about 3 years ago, exploring sort of the geography of the San Francisco Bay. And with this project, Ian's gone much more global in scale, definitely zooming out. To say a few words about Ian, Ian's an award-winning in performance, media and performance artist. He's often found collaborating with composers, with directors, and choreographers. He creates both stage and open-ended video and acoustic media environments. And his work is shown internationally. His work with noted ensembles and directors in performance, and in more traditional video and visual work, has been supported by the Creative Work Fund, the Rainin Foundation, Zellerbach Family Foundation, Jurassic, and MPAC, among many others. He maintains an active worldwide teaching practice, leading workshops in live media and integration of sensors, physical performance and site-based projects. He studied video and performance at the School of the Museum of Fine Arts and Tufts University, followed by training in dance, physical theater, and architecture. He is also the co-curator of Milk Bar with Mary Armentrout. And this is just a few things I can say about him. And we're thrilled to welcome you here for the launch of this project. I will hand the mic over.
Great. Well, thank you, Pete. It's really great to be back at Arts Ed. And a little bit about the project. So Domestic Light is a project that sort of came into being during the pandemic, thinking about how do we think about domestic space and how do we think about light? And also in a moment when suddenly everything in the world is being mediated through screens, how do we think about how light itself is mediated in an environment where the complexity of light is getting reduced to red, green, and blue pixels that are sort of a small fraction of what we can actually see and perceive. So that led to this thinking about and exploring the nature, this global idea to see what is the color of home. So what is that moment when you get home, back to home, whatever that is, and that's an open question what that is. There are so many places where that it's so particular, and you know instantly, oh, this is the fog of a San Francisco Bay 4 o'clock summer afternoon. Oh, this is Trondheim, and it's at the solstice, and it's broad daylight at midnight, and there's a very particular light there. Or you're on the equator, and there's a very, very, very particular light, you know, on the ocean. So all of those things led into this thinking about the project. And working at this scale also requires an enormous number of partners. And so incredibly happy to have the support of the Sussex Humanities Lab at the University of Sussex. And Sharon Webb will be saying a few things about that partnership and fellowship. And the Leonardo and International Society for Art, Science, and Technology. And we have Vanessa Chang here, who has been our sort of lead partner in helping build the network that is this project. At SF Arts Ed, we already got to meet Pete, and the Jurassic Resident Artist Program, which has helped support it through residencies and also helping build this network as well.
The creative.
And yes, and cannot forget the Creative Work Fund, which has helped been the primary funder for the partnership with Leonardo. So it's a wonderful collaboration of people, and exciting to be diving into this is just the start of a 1.25-year long project. So there'll be this web portal that you'll see that's starting up very shortly. And then in a year, there will be a live video and music performance that draws from all the data and information and sound that's gathered over the next year. And myself and composer Pamela Z will turn that into a live work. And then also have other collaborators. Weidong Yang of Kinetech Arts is helping on the data visualization piece and making the technological side of this adventure work, along with John McCallum, who's a composer and computer scientist from Berlin, who's helped build and design the firmware for the sensors. So, and then have Allison Holt, who's here, who's helped project manage what is a meaningfully complicated group of partners and places and people. I think that's my short introduction.
So
We'll hand it off to Vanessa.
Hello, thank you, Ian.
Yeah.
Allison, delighted to be here today and to watch this take flight. It's been a little while in the making. I'm the Director of Programs, Vanessa Chang at Leonardo, the International Society for Art, Science, and Technology. We're really excited to partner with Ian and everyone on this project because in its aspirations to build a network, kind of a global network through artistic practice, really echoes Leonardo's long-standing commitments to the global world and a global kind of network that amplifies interdisciplinary art, science, and technology, that's grounded on collaboration and aesthetic pleasure and community and all of that. We've over almost 60 years in the making of doing this work, and this project really embodies what we've been working on for all this time. And it's in its desire to build an alternative network through this network of sensors placed in windowsills. This project, Domestic Light, also is taking place in a particularly urgent time where we're flooded with misinformation. This is really built on pure observation, on data, and then also that data will be open and available for people to work with down the line. So it's also about building knowledge networks and epistemological networks. And we're eager to support that. We're eager to continue building that. So we're looking forward to working with all of you, and are we questions on this?
I think so.
Okay, and
we're going to
Jewel?
connect with Sharon Webb of the SHL
Yes.
also.
great. I think I see Sharon over there.
This,
It's
hi, Sharon.
Sharon Webb of the Sussex.
Hello, how are you? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Good to see you.
Lovely to see you.
I was just at SHL, so
I know you were live and in person a few days ago. So thank you for inviting me along to this fantastic event. It's a great pleasure to see the project being launched and to see such interest in the project. So I've just been asked to give a little brief introduction to the Sussex Humanities Lab, where Ian has been kind of a collaborator and research fellow. I want to say over the last 4 or 5 years, but I don't know if COVID has kind of interrupted my idea of time. So, but for a long time at least, you've been a visiting fellow for the lab. So for those of you who don't know the Sussex Humanities Lab, it's a research programme at the University of Sussex, which is in Brighton, UK. And it's a lab which experiments with digital methods in research. And our kind of a tagline is like, we investigate the interactions between technology and culture, society and environment. And we do all this in order to imagine and create more sustainable and just futures for all. So within this context, we're delighted that Ian has worked alongside us over the last number of years, developing their project and developing, other interests with lab members as well. I think Ian's project really demonstrates the way in which, those intersections between society and culture, between society and the digital and the environment, really exemplify the way in which creative practice and creative process is a really brilliant and fantastic way to produce work that is both effective and has a residual narrative around it. And this global initiative to measure light, demonstrates, as I said, the kind of the power to engage with people outside of academia. I think that's one thing that the lab also prioritizes, is thinking beyond people who are in our academic institutions and really kind of foster partnerships and collaborations with artists, with activists, with kind of community heritage organizations and with kind of broader publics. And Ian's work exemplifies this. I also wanted to say that Ian has contributed, I suppose, to the intellectual life of the lab in so many ways, being a very amazing colleague. So not just a visiting fellow, I think, many people would consider him a friend. So yeah, just to say thank you for the opportunity to speak, and to, congratulations on the launch of the work.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's been great being able to be at the lab and, really have a kind of artistic and intellectual home base in Brighton. And super excited to see how it goes. And for anybody watching from the UK, there is a little stash of these sensors that can be sent to you from the Humanities Lab, complete with their cute little boxes and wrapping paper. So next up,
Can we
Jewel?
with Jewel?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I
Jewel is
am
joining
here,
us
at
from
Jurassic
Jurassic.
It's very windy here today, so at any moment I could drop out, but I just wanted to jump on and say congratulations and hello, and thank you so much for including us in everything that you're doing there. We just started a new cohort yesterday, 11 scientists and artists here on the ranch, and I miss you terribly for being, and we're very excited to be a part of this project in any way we can.
Yay. And there's a sensor to come down to the ranch and install in the artist house. That's the very first prototype of these sensors went up in the artist house. And so
Did you develop it there?
I did.
Yeah.
There was a version of this that was built on Raspberry Pi 0Ws. And then the chip shortage came along and there were no Raspberry Pis available. So it had to be redesigned. So sensor for Jurassic coming soon.
Wonder if we can share the
We look at the website.
we should. Before we do that, can we just share the links for folks to connect with the project?
Yeah. So there's a bunch of different ways. So domesticlight.art, that is the brand new website that just went live about 15 minutes ago. And so there's a very, very shiny new web portal into the project that also shows all the different locations. And you can see what we're going to see on the screen there in a moment. And if you click on the locations tab, you can see all the different places that we have around the world. You can also click on, if you click on any of the dots on here, you can see information about any of the given sites. So there will be live streaming data over the next couple of weeks as sensors get turned on and plugged into the network. And so you'll be able to go online and literally in real time see the color of light and all the different spectra of each of these different places. Is also over the next month or so, you'll be able to access the store of data. So, you know, if you're a data artist or sort of data visualization person, you'll be able to have ways to look at that data, which I'll be using to create a project over the next year. But it's also intended really as a network project.
Do you want to connect on Instagram?
Yeah, and on Instagram, you can also go to domestic_light. That is the project Instagram page, which went live about 10 days ago. And there's also my Instagram, ianwinters.videoartist. And there's Leonardo, which is
Leonardo Isast.
Leonardo Isast. Yeah. And there's, if you look in the footer of the new website, there's all the different links to all the different partners. That's probably the best way to go rather than listening to me. And what else should we show you before we go live?
Oh, is there anything else you'd like to show?
I could show the little sensors.
Yeah, you should.
So I'm going to walk over a little bit closer to the camera here. If you're curious about what these things are, here in real life is the little sensor that's going on the windowsill. So you can see this little thing right here in the center that says AS7341 light sensor. That's what does all the magic. And then there's this little controller, which is an ESP3270, ESP32S3. And there's a real-time clock, which keeps all of these devices in sync worldwide, which has definitely been that was a big piece of the technology to sort out. And finally, if you see these other pins, they're built so that down the road, we could also add on greenhouse gas sensors and make a sort of artist network of environmental monitoring stations, which that's a whole other thing to do. So we're getting this launched. Yep. And yep.
In just a second. But we have our Instagram is @domestic_light. So connect with us there because we're going to be sharing posts from sensor hosts around the world as they go online and as they start activating their sensors. Yeah. So connect with us there. You can see stop motion of the build of the sensor you would just look at. And there it is looking pretty in Copenhagen, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah. I wasn't there, but I'm tracking all of this. So we're gonna take a look at the Domestic Light website in just a second.
And do we want to shift over to see the monitor piece?
Yes, so there's an installation here at SF Arts Ed Gallery that will be up for the coming year. What you're looking at is two monitors that are made into a video wall, so it's a continuous display of the full Domestic Light project. So when you look at the website, you are looking at a window that you can navigate around. So you can, when you're on the website, you can move the map around, you can scroll. This is showing the full display. And we're here at Minnesota Street Projects and upstairs at SF Arts Ed Gallery. This will be on display for the coming year. So what you're witnessing is two monitors that are captured within a steel mount. Yeah.
And I might tell a little story.
Ooh, tell a little story about it.
And as it goes live, I just wanted to tell people a little story. So what you're watching on screen in the background is the last year of the light on Earth. So this little animation we've got is the last year of human caused illumination on Earth. So if we wait a minute, we'll see what domestic light from space looked like. And one of the pieces of the project, so there's both this very intimate scale of looking at what the internal light of home looks like, but then home is a big thing. And so one of the things that's of interest to me is really working at this global scale as well, so that you can see there's now real-time satellite technology. And so we're able to see in real time or delayed by a few hours at most, what the light of Earth and what the light of home in the broadest sense looks like. And I'm almost done. We're about ready to go on to the next little slide. Yes. And so what you'll see on screen in the gallery installation will be also adding on, the visuals of what the light is in each location. So, we're just getting color streaming coming in now. But on screen now, there's the real-time satellite picture of the last day of light slowly crossing the Earth. Then I'm just going to show you. You can also see on the website where we have lots of different locations. So there are some pretty fabulous places that you can go and look. And each of these pages, each of the sensor hosts has a page to upload a recording of a minute of sound once a month about what the sound of their home is like that month, as well as observations and anything else that we care to share as part of building a network. And finally, just want to mention again, over the course of the year, we'll be adding on the ability to turn these into greenhouse gas / methane sensors. There's sort of an idea in the back of my head that once we've built a network like this, could be incredibly powerful to have a group of artists who are actually also able to do things like track methane and greenhouse gas plumes and have data around things like that, really available in ways that are not always available. And that's our locations. And you can, this piece will be, the monitor piece is an edition of 5, and will be up at Minnesota Street in the Arts Ed Gallery through 2024. And you can also obviously look online for the web portal version of that. And see who am I handing mic off to next?
Okay, and then Mike back to Vanessa. Hopefully we can connect with some folks on Zoom.
Here, as you can see already, there are the beginnings of an extraordinary global network with sensors placed in various parts around the world, and with the data is just going to be turned on. They're being turned on today.
Yeah.
We are still looking for more sensor hosts around the world. So particularly in China, Africa, and South America. If you are interested in hosting a sensor or have connections to institutions or to artists working in the space who might be interested in hosting a sensor, that will help to build out this network over the next little while. So much appreciated. We won't see my expanding that. But for now, we wanted to give some space and a platform to the folks who are here and are attending and hosting a sensor to share their thoughts about participating in this project and to invite any questions you might have. So the floor is open if there's anyone out there who wants to share something.
Yeah, we'll read their questions.
Pete, you can add your questions in the chat and Pete will read them. And that's recording.
So there were some here, maybe I can take
Yeah.
things. There were some faculty, several faculty have actually reached out. This is Allison Holt speaking. If you've interacted with Domestic Light, you've likely talked to me at some point. And I've spoken with several faculty around the world who are interested in in Domestic Light in interaction with their students. So activating classes and bringing it as part of workshops. So just wanted to suggest that this is maybe a good time to ask any questions of Ian. You can ask questions about your sensor or about how you might use the data in the future, how you might connect in the network that Domestic Light is generating. So feel free to bring questions to Ian now. And yeah, it looks like we've got questions starting in the chat, so I'll hand it over.
And Pete, I don't know if you were able to read that.
Yeah, I can read it. It's from Chad, and the question is, where do you get the inspiration for the synthesis between technology and art?
So the question was, where did you get the inspiration for the synthesis between technology and art? Well, that's definitely a big question. I think one maybe the core of it for me is thinking about how a key piece of art is really observing the world and trying to really understand something about what is the world and you know, this time on earth that we have, and as people, like, how do we understand that and how do we relate to each other, and how does that turn into culture, and how do we pass that on, and how do we create this thing that is so much more than any of us. And where technology comes into that is, well, those are ways we are a technological species, and how can we use technology to expand what we can do and expand what we can know and expand what is really possible culturally. And you know, it would be incredibly difficult to build a piece that thought about the nature of light worldwide without involving technology. So I'm always really curious about what can you do with something that you couldn't do without it. So in many ways, you know, I'd much rather just use some pastels. And if there's not something that you need the sensors for, well, how about some pastel drawings? Like those are nice. There will probably be some of them in this project, kind of in parallel with this. I've been doing every week a set of pastel animations, which basically is, started out as a way to try to stay somewhat grounded in amongst hours and hours and hours and hours of coding. But
even pigments in pastels constitute technology.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that is a heavily mediated and technological thing. So thank you, Chad. Looks like why.
I can see that. It's something about why.
So I guess why a big is there anything else beyond that, Pete?
I think the question is just like why light?
Oh, why light?
Light.
Yeah, sorry, I can only read the first half of the
What
sentence,
light
but
means so much to you, or what light means.
okay. So light is one of, now, as a visual artist, light is certainly a key way of interacting with the world. It's certainly not the only way. I mean, we have many senses, but it's a thing that, in one way, it's difficulty of pinning down is kind of emblematic by it being both a particle and a wave. It's a thing and it's not a thing. And it's something that's moving, but it's massless. And it's a way of revealing other objects in space. And it's also something itself, yet it has all these kind of temporal qualities, yet it's also numinous and hard to pin down. And there's, just think about the number of adjectives like throughout literature and history of all the ways you can describe light. So something I like thinking about is how do we get down to the basis of our materials, and how do we investigate the kind of underpinnings of the things that are seemingly uncomplicated. And light, it turns out, when you get down to it, is really, really complicated. And what is it? It's a lot of different things. So that's really the driving, and we also, really specific to the project, we imprint in many ways both our body clocks and our sense of place on light. Think about somewhere that you lived as a small child, and probably you'll have some adjectives that relate to the sound of it. And you'll also have some adjectives that you'll know, like the way it looked. And that is really light, that quality of light. Is it the blinding light that's in your face? Is it a sort of flat, overcast light? Is it a sort of greenish hue of some institutional waiting room? So
can I ask a question?
Yeah, and it looks like there's also another one.
Let's get... Here, I'll ask you a question.
Okay. Pete, would you be able to see what that question said?
When the data is accessible, what sort of formats will it be available in? I'm not a coder, I'm a printmaker.
Okay, so when the data is accessible, what kind of formats will it be in? I'm a printmaker, not a coder. So that is one of the things we'll be working, especially with the humanities lab and the library at Sussex, and thinking about how do we really truly make this accessible. From a technical standpoint, the data is getting saved in what's called a GeoJSON format, which is just it's essentially a gigantic spreadsheet that has a set of tags that identify each location and the number that is the intensity of a given color of light at any given moment. So it's sort of like saving thousands and thousands and thousands of frames of animation. that are the color of light worldwide. In terms of making it accessible, like for example, for printmaking, one of the things I'm looking at is in addition to there being the data file that's a structured set of numbers. That's what the computer and coding world and data science world wants, is how having some things that are sort of partly pre-digested, so that you can visualize it in different ways through. We ended up building an API or a programming interface that will let you be able to select particular sets of data. And then one of the things that my collaborator Wei is looking into and working on is can we basically graph and chart and visualize stuff through the website, so that you can say put in a query of look at the difference in colors across this particular time scale in this particular place. So things like that. And then of course it'll be available as a giant data file, sort of NASA style. But that I keenly understand how unfriendly that is to someone who is not a data scientist. So hope that answers that question.
I have a quick question before we get to, while you are coming up with another one yourselves. And it's coming back to your practice and the previous projects, even the one that you did here. Stop motion is a form of media that, a form of video making that is part of several of your recent projects, which are all large projects. And this is also a time lapse. I'm sorry, I meant to say time lapse video is the form that a lot of your recent projects have taken. And this is also a time lapse video project, but just a massive scale one. So I wonder if you can talk a little bit about the nature of time lapse and how that is taking place, and what the connection is with your impetus in this project.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So something I've always been interested in is sort of what the passage of time looks like, and how much we both sync and async to it, and how sort of memory and place and perception all rely on this kind of internal clock. Yet it's a very variable clock when it comes down to it. And animation and time lapse are a way of exploring those different rhythms and patterns. So, if you think, I often think about things somewhat musically, and you can think about the patterns that take place over the course of a year as that's something that's, say, maybe 20 or 30 octaves below what our normal perception could be. Our perception can see the world in normal day-to-day human time. We wouldn't be able to see the sun going up and down and see what kind of patterns happen from that. Maybe an exceptional person could observe from a mountaintop for a year and be able to really truly understand what that feels like day to 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 day. But most of us are not that person, and have dinner to get on the table and clothing to wash and the host of things that happen in the day to day. So that's where animation and time lapse are a way of really exploring all these different kind of compositional rhythms and patterns, and which are in essence other consciousnesses or other ways, because our consciousness is closely tied to our internal time clock. And by being able to vary really what is our perceptual time clock, you can experience other ways of looking at the world, and other ways of perceiving the rhythms and patterns that happen in the world that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise.
So kind of thinking, bringing other scales of time to the human scale, and being able to think through other minds.
Yeah, that is definitely it. And it's also, another that sort of makes me, one other way I thought about this project is in essence, it's building a giant camera that's about a 200 pixel camera. So it's super low resolution video. Instead of going ultra 4K, we've now gone 200 pixels as opposed to 16 million pixels. And the big difference is the camera aperture is 26,000 miles across. So it's the size of a planet as a camera aperture, which is sort of,
This is the opposite of the Event Horizon Telescope.
yeah,
The
it's
Event Horizon
going
Telescope is using the planet to look out, and you are using the planet to look
in,
Yeah.
and also see what's looking in at us from the stars.
Do we have any other questions from Zoom?
I have a comment question.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, Ian, when you were talking about the notion of the empirical and how this form of observation via data is empirical, it kind of makes me think too about the assumptions that we have about empiricism and light and the way that was exploded, when we think about like quantum mechanics and how observation can change the position or change our understanding of can change where an observed photon is, and that we don't actually maybe know what light is, right? Observation has an impact, whether that observation is human observation and the domestic observation of light out the windows, or this kind of technically mediated observation, whether that technology is a camera or a data sensor or pastel. So I'd be curious to kind of hear you reflect a little bit on that tension, right, between observation as an empirical practice and also a deeply subjective one, and how you're navigating that tension in this particular project.
Yeah. Oh, that's definitely a fun question. So, one of the things I would say that draws me in part to working with data and projects like this is really exploring the sort of, in one sense, the fallacy of empiricism, and yet it's also, there are tremendous things that you can learn through empirical observation, and there's also limits to it. So for example, there are the huge changes that happen in the numbers that spit out of these sensors are 16-bit numbers, which seems incredibly accurate and a great deal of precision. And yet, given the variables in the cases and where on a windowsill and the position of the diffusion on the sensor after it gets shipped halfway around the world, that gets rid of probably at least 8 bits of precision. So, that's sort of one very pragmatic piece. But, thinking more metaphorically, this project is really thought about as a sort of platform for observation and meditation on the nature of light and place. And here's the sensors are in essence a kind of robotic, but robotic in that it is doing a job for us, and it's observing for you what your place in the world is in terms of light and color for a year. And it's doing that 24/7 and sharing that with you and relieving you in a sense of that burden of continuous observation, but hopefully prompting some closer awareness and perception of those changes and patterns. And so I think that to me is the very resonant piece about the quantum nature of light, that hopefully by observing it, you are making this change in yourself and in whoever's observing the project, at least in me, in terms of the level of sleep I've gotten over the last few months of building the project, that there are these changes that happen through that awareness and observation and attention to sort of space and place and perception and world. And my hope is that kind of perception and awareness also carries over to many other things in the world that need attention and perception and awareness. It's obviously closely allied with kind of how do we do something about climate change, and in essence a problem driven by lack of awareness or lack of attention on a giant cultural scale. So
we are looking, if you are interested in asking any more questions, we're still going to be taking them for the next few minutes, but I was just hearing what you were saying and thinking about these sensors as little brains, and that they are constantly awake, and that they're extensions of your vision in a way, your ability to see and witness the place where you live in a different way, and maybe you can think about your place through their observation. But I remember you saying something about methane sensors possibly being added, which is another layer of observation that we have, that we aren't really to observe. Can you say something more about that part of what is possible in the future?
sure. So one of the kind of interesting things about observation and light is there are many things in the atmosphere, and so much of the particularity of light is really caused by what's around it and what it's passing through. So for example, what the atmosphere is composed of strongly influences our perception of light. And that happens both on a visible spectrum and on a UV and near IR basis. And in doing some experiments with the sensors, they span a wide enough range of wavelengths, including UV and near IR, that you can see something like a methane plume. So if there's a strong infrared, so methane is it's the gas that's in your stove, but it's also a really potent greenhouse gas, in part because it has a really strong infrared signature. And so what that means is it traps infrared, and it shows you there's all sorts of things you can see online of people going around with infrared cameras to track methane. If you are looking at, and this is sort of one of the places where machine learning could come into the project, is if you're looking at what a particular signature of light in a place looks like without methane, and then you have an indication that there's a bit of methane. So from an inexpensive sensor that's a generalized volatile organic compound sensor, you can then review the change in the infrared signature, and I think be able to tell that there's been a significant increase in methane concentration because it has such a significant spectral signature. So that's like an adjunct to the project that really interested in, and it's sort of designed and built so that could happen, but that's also beyond the primary scope of the project. And I think, are there any other questions?
No? Okay.
And I think it'd be great to mention how to also.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So if you're interested in hosting a sensor, you can, or someone who might be interested in hosting a sensor, we are very much still looking for sensor hosts. We have 63 people who have joined so far, and many more coming in, but there's a page, participate, which has all the details about what you would do. It's pretty easy. It'll send you a sensor and figure out how to get it to you, and you connect it to your Wi-Fi and to a USB power supply and put in your Wi-Fi information, and it sends it proceeds to send data to us, and that is that. And it'll flash on and off a little blue light to let you know it's still alive. It'll also send that same information. If you're an artist who wants to work with data, it'll stream it locally to your local network over what's called open sound control, which if you use Ableton or Max MSP or Jitter or Isadora or any number of kind of live coding or live sound performance tools, you might find it fun to do things with the color data from your home.
What about hubs distribution?
And we're also looking for institutions, artist-friendly institutions who might like to be a hub to help distribute them. So we have a center in Australia, and Leonardo has been helping organize this around the world. But we are still looking for place, and obviously Sussex is one of those hubs. But
We brought some to Indonesia.
yes, there have been a couple that have gone to Indonesia, courtesy of the Balinese music community. But we're looking for places to help host and also to help distribute sensors and host workshops as well. And there's one more question that I saw come in, but I couldn't quite see.
See, we were picking up our signal. Turn it on. I haven't had to.
Yes, I will. Once I'm not on camera, I can take a look. And there's a brand new setup page on the website, and within the next few days you'll be able to check yourself and see if the data is going live. It's not quite working yet, but that will be the case in the next few days. Oh, any more questions? I think we're about at our, yeah.
Allison DeLauer, can you let us know if you are picking up our signal? I turned it on to get to step 2. So excited, beautiful work.
Yes, that is what I had just mentioned, that yes, we will be.
And also just more of a comment than a question, but Leonardo is excited to work, be a partner, collaborator.
Yes. Thank you, Diana. And so it's been great working with Leonardo. And I guess we're probably at the this is our official published time. We don't want to, Zoom is a thing. So I want to say thank you so much to Pete and Chad and Emily and everyone at SF Arts Ed for hosting us and giving us a space for a year, which is phenomenal, and to Sussex Humanities Lab and everybody at Sussex who have been a tremendous help, and to Leonardo and Vanessa especially for helping connect us with all these wonderful people around the world, and Allison for helping me out and making all of the, keeping all the balls in the air and going administratively. And to all of you for hosting Sensors and being part of a total mad science project. It's pretty wonderful to see people, an idea resonate with people that is on one hand a really simple idea. Oh, just put color sensors in people's homes around the world and then we'll make a video out of it. Couldn't be, that's like, a couple days, right? And it's turned into probably the most technically complicated project I've ever done, which people that know me know that's a fairly high bar. So thank you all. And if you're in San Francisco, come on down to SF Arts Ed Gallery at Minnesota Street Project, 1275 Minnesota Street. And see it. And you can also watch it online for the next year. And then in about 15 months, there will be a live show. Myself and Pamela Z using the sound that everyone gathers over the next year, and all of this data and vision turned into a giant light and video and music show that will hopefully go around the world. So thanks, everybody.